RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, contests, life, whatever is on your mind, it is all on the table. This show, as always, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. Try the all-new creolized, ultra-micronized creatine by Species Nutrition. As we bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a lot has been said by and about Lee Priest's 2 appearances on the airwaves of RxMuscle in the last week.
Yeah, Lee had contacted me a couple weeks ago and had expressed interest in doing an interview with me. And I said, well, Lee, being a supporter of the IFBB, and of the bodybuilding organization, I said, if I'm going to get you on this interview show, and I know a lot of people want to hear from you, are you interested in getting back into the IFBB? Do you have remorse for what you did? And he goes, I actually do. He goes, he said, I kind of effed up a little bit, and I'd like to, apologize. I said, okay, then that's great, and I'm just being honest with everyone because everyone wants to know, how this came about. So I realized that he was sincere, and we did the interview. I thought it came out really good. And I think that, I hope that, everyone has received it well. And I think a lot of people miss Lee, and they miss his strong opinions on things. And hopefully, he's going to slowly but surely, get back into the IFBB, and maybe we'll see him on stage again if he can deal with some of his physical problems he's having. Interestingly, I guess someone had asked Sean Ray, who was on vacation in Hawaii, what he felt about Lee Priest's interview that he did on this show, and he basically kind of slammed Lee a little bit. So Lee saw it, and I said, hey, Lee, you want to make a response to this? And Lee's like, yeah, sure. Lee was at the gym at like 5 in the morning or something like that in Australia, and we got him, the sun was just coming up. You could even see it on his face. And he did another interview with us a couple days later, and it was, stellar. Just scathing, Lee Priest at his best. So, look, I'm looking forward to getting him on an upcoming episode of Iron Debate. And I think he's going to be a good addition to the RxMuscle team if he so desires to keep participating with us.
So the interview with Lee Priest, a live with episode, as well as his response to Sean Ray, both available on RxMuscle.com and, of course, the RxMuscle YouTube channel. Let's get to the questions. We start first with our good friend Alan Marashi, the quote-unquote Species Nutrition World Champion. Alan Marashi, what is going on with the new caffeine-infused nitralized formula, and when will it be available?
What I did, Sid, was I basically, we put out the nitralized, which was our stimulant-free, pre-workout, and then I had nitralized S, which was the workout with caffeine in it, buffered caffeine, and it's a good product. I love it. It's a great product, and there's a lot of people out there that love it, and I just, I felt that it needed to be redone. I wanted to refresh it a little bit. So I haven't done it yet. We're in the process of doing some trials on a few different products. I wanted to have a little bit more kick to it. And I know people who are using it love it, but I don't think I have enough people using it right now. So I want to make it better, and that's what I'm working on. So I'm not going to release it till then. Before that comes out, however, Amino Evolved will be coming out, which is our new essential amino acid product that's very high in branched chain aminos, and they're all fermented amino acids, which means they don't come from human hair. They're made from bacteria. So this is going to be a really stellar product. It tastes really good. Matter of fact, I'm drinking samples of it right here. This is our blue raspberry, ironically enough. And I can't wait till that comes out. That should be out hopefully in the next month or so. And then once that comes out, then hopefully we'll have the refresh on nitralized, and I might actually call it turbolized, to be honest with you. I might change the name. So we'll see. We got a lot of different projects in the works.
He also goes on to ask, he's running a mild summer cycle of 7 at 50 mg test, 600 mg tren anthate, and 100 mg anavar. What are your thoughts on this for a 12-week run?
It's a lot of trenbolone. 600 milligrams of trenbolone is like, when I was competing, I was using 150 milligrams a week, or 50 every other day. That's a lot of trenbolone. You're going to have a lot of trouble sleeping. You're going to have a lot of anxiety from it. I would watch my blood pressure. You're going to watch your temper. It's a lot of trenbolone to be packing in there. And, that's also a lot of anavar. 125 milligrams of anavar per day. If you think about what we did back in the day, we used to do They were 2.5 milligram tabs. We would do like 5 or 6 of them. Okay, what was that, like 15 milligrams? So, I mean, 125 milligrams actually, see what people don't realize, they think Anadrol is side effect free, which it is if you use it in the right dosages, which is anywhere from like 5 milligrams to like 30 milligrams. Once you go over that, you get side effects from it. It can aromatize. You can get a masculinizing side effects if you're a woman and you take too much of it. And it does produce some liver toxicity because it's an oral. So that's a lot of oral to be taken. It's a lot of trenbolone. I think the dosages are too high. I'd probably cut the trenbolone at least in half, and I would probably cut the Anadrol in thirds.
Let's go to Ahmet Kinchi, Los Angeles. Dave, what do you think about blood donations for bodybuilders? Is it good to give blood every 4 months? Your thoughts?
I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Obviously, having high red blood cell and hemoglobin hematocrit levels concerns doctors. It concerns them because it makes the blood a little thicker. Now, if you're dehydrating before a show and your blood's a little thick, I mean, there is a possibility of you throwing a clot, which is dangerous, obviously, and especially if it happens in the lungs, you could die, or the heart for that matter, or the brain. So we don't want that. However, most cyclists, if you think about it, and marathon runners have super high red blood cell count, either because they're sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber, or they're taking EPO, or they're blood doping, or whatever they're doing, because they perform better. So taking blood out of your body to thin your blood out, you know, theoretically sounds good, and probably not a bad idea if you're super, super high. But I think as an athlete who's on like vitamin E and omega fish oil, these are all substances that keep the blood very thin and prevent clotting. I don't think it's necessary. Matter of fact, I find that when people go for bloodletting, or whatever you want to call it, donating blood, and they take it out every 58 days, which is what you can donate in the blood bank every 58 days. What I think happens is your body super compensates for this, and it starts producing red blood cells at an even greater rate than before. Because guys that give blood seem to have to give it every single month. They're like, my red blood cell keeps getting higher and higher and higher. But people who don't give blood, they kind of hit a certain level and then plateau and stay there. So I never gave blood my entire career. And my blood pressure wasn't high. It got high when I got older, So I didn't really have any problems. I took a lot of fish oil. If you take my Omega Lyse formula, you're really not going to throw clots. It's just makes it really hard for the blood to clot. So I'm not such a big advocate of donating blood. Now, if you're 50 years old and you have a super high red blood cell count and you have a history in your family of blockages in arteries and clots, you might want to do that if you're high. But if you're in your 20s, 30s, even or late 30s, I don't think I would do it.
This is another question that you have gotten quite a lot, and of course it is contest season. So Mason Bateman, Dave, the best ways to combat acne while on cycle. Of course, hormone balance is key, but for people who are very acne prone, what are your suggestions to combat and eliminate acne on cycle, especially back acne?
Yeah, I had problems with that. I didn't have scarring from my acne, but I had big, especially when I was on cycle, big red, like painful things on my back that were not fun. I wound up taking Accutane for 5 months, and I got rid of it. And I still broke out after that, but it wasn't like terrible big red welts anymore. So that helped a lot. Also, I think what helps is if pre-contest, I would take like prescription antibiotic, like Augmentin. I would take 1,000 milligrams a day for the last 2 weeks every day. And that seemed to that cleared up my skin completely. Now, you can't stay on that all the time, although I probably stayed on it longer than I should have. But it definitely works to clear your skin up. The question is, why are you breaking out so much? Now, obviously, there's a genetic component. Certain people break out more than others. Now, why is that? I believe it's because certain populations of people, their body detoxifies itself through the pores, through the skin. Italians are like that. That's why we get greasy. Our bodies release waste products through the skin, which is good because the skin's a big organ and a lot of waste can go through there. The problem is it irritates the sebaceous glands, and then bacteria build up there that are on the skin, and then you get pimples and boils or whatever you want to call them that you get. Other people exterminate waste or get rid of waste from their body through their intestinal tract. They dump it into their stomach. That's why a lot of people get acid reflux. There's a lot of bodybuilders with really bad acid reflux. It causes them to get hiccups, chronic hiccups. That's how they're getting rid of waste. So if your bodies are ridding itself of waste, because there's too much of it, because we eat so much food and eat so much protein and there's so much, acidic waste product, taking supplements that help negate the acidity is going to help you. Obviously, taking a good quality chelated calcium supplement, like you find in my V mineralized formula, is a great adjunct. Drinking alkalinized water is tremendous. You can get that from Fiji water. You can buy an alkalinized water filter. I sell on DavePalumbo.com these new water pitchers. They look like Brita pitchers. You fill them with water, filters the water, and it alkalinizes it. Super easy. Drink 3 to 5 glasses of that a day on an empty stomach, and you will help neutralize acidity in your body. It will also curtail some of that breakout. Now, the first line of action I would do if you're breaking out really bad, and I tell a lot of teenagers and young guys to do this, use my Testalize product. It has a DHT. It's not going to block DHT production, but it's going to blunt it a little bit. Doing that will control hormone levels. It's not going to get rid of your acne, but it's going to certainly clear up the situation, because DHT does irritate the sebaceous glands. And we see that in people, especially that are using anabolic steroids, or just kids who have very high testosterone levels. So there's a multifaceted approach to curing acne, or at least controlling acne. A lot of it's genetic. I know guys that I don't think I ever saw a pimple on Jay Cutler's body, ever. He just genetically probably doesn't break out. That's not how his body gets rid of waste. So not everyone gets them. So don't think it's because some guy's taking a ton of drugs that he's getting acne. It's just that that's the way his body rids himself of waste. I broke out before I even took a steroid. Once again, it's about managing DHT levels, about managing toxicity and acidity in the body, okay? And obviously, the last component would be to clean your skin. I used Dial soap. It's the best soap if you're prone to breaking out. I would use it in the shower. I would try to take a shower in the morning and then take a shower at night, especially if you're prone to breaking out. Never go to bed dirty, okay? And when you get up in the morning, take a shower too. Get that stuff off your skin. Get the bacteria off your skin. Because the bacteria that's on your skin is what's seeding the sebaceous glands.
Bassier C, Dave, love the show. Do you think Clen causes insulin resistance?
No. I know there's been some articles about it's hard to carb up on Clen. I don't buy into it. I haven't seen it. I don't believe that to be the case.
Brad McCaff, Dave, I've heard very mixed ideas about running EQ. Everyone says you have to run it around 600 mg a week to have any benefits. Is this true?
Back in the day, we used to get equipoise in 50 cc bottles. It was veterinary, because the horses, and it was 50 milligrams per ml. So it was 50 mLs. It was only 50 milligrams per ml. The reason they dosed it like that is because horses only get 50 milligrams every 2 weeks. You give a horse more than 50 milligrams of EQ in 2 weeks, it goes crazy. So horses respond differently to anabolic steroids than humans do. We used to take back in the day 100 milligrams every other day. That was what I used most of my career. And it seemed to work really good for me. Then they came out with 200 milligram per ml EQ, which was made ostensibly for humans, even though illegitimately for humans it should be, I should say. And then it was just easier to take a whole cc, so we went up to 200 milligrams every other day. And that comes out to about 600 milligrams per week, which I think is the most you need to do. I wouldn't do more than that. I think you could probably get away with 300 milligrams 300 milligrams per week as well. But I would say it's in the 300 to 600 milligram range, depending on whether you're a beginner or advanced lifter.
Let's go to Scotty_Ham as a question about you and your competition past. I would like to hear more about your competition years. What diets worked best for you and those that didn't? What mistakes did you make, and what worked for you, which allowed you to be a 300-pound monster in freaky condition?
Well, I had good genetics. That's one thing. But I was a super hard worker. No one worked harder at bodybuilding than I did. That's for sure. When I was in the 1992 to 1998, those 6 years, 5-6 years there, I don't think there was anyone on this planet who was training harder than me, eating more correctly, taking the right supplements, taking the right performance-enhancing drug combinations. I mean, that was all I thought about day and night, and I didn't deviate. I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't go out. I was really, really, really focused on what I wanted to do. Now, diet-wise, pretty much every diet worked well for me because I had a good metabolism. I was one of those guys. Initially, I started with the high protein, moderate to low carb, moderate carb diet, very, very low fat. I found that it worked for me, but I did feel flat on those diets. And when I started adding fats, okay, to the equation, I think that's when I looked my best. So toward the end of my career, probably my diets were really high protein, moderate fat, low carb. I wouldn't say I went ketogenic all the time. For maybe maybe about 4 to 6 weeks, I would be very, very low ketogenic type diet with the cheat meal once a week. But I probably performed best on just a very low carb diet, not a ketogenic diet, just because I needed some carbs because my metabolism was so fast. Because I would start dieting 6 weeks out from a show toward the end, and I was in shape 2 weeks out. So I got in shape very, very quickly. Early in my career, though, I never ate a lot of carbs while I dieted, okay? I always ate moderate. I never went above 250 grams of carbs. I always felt that the protein and fat were more important, and when I kept those high, okay, I didn't need to go more carbs because I realized that carbohydrates are just a fuel source. Eating more of them is not gonna make you bigger. It's not gonna make you better bodybuilder. It's like putting more gas in your car. If you have a half a tank of gas and you put another half a tank in there and fill it up, the car doesn't perform better. It only needs gas. It doesn't need more gas. Putting more gasoline into the engine won't make the engine produce more horsepower. And I think that's the same thing with the body. And people have to realize adding more carbs to your diet is not going to make your muscles bigger, okay? But as long as you have some fuel there, you don't want your body cannibalizing muscle tissue. So you have to find the fine line of what works for you. What worked for me was high protein, moderate fat, moderate to low carb diets.
On that note, Jay Hafner 111 wants to know, when doing keto, should you be consuming vegetables at most meals or just fat and protein?
Certain vegetables are very, very low in carbs and you can get away with them. Usually when I put someone on a ketogenic diet, it doesn't really have a lot of vegetables in it. That does not to say that you can't use them, but like most people do, chicken and nuts or chicken with avocado. I don't really have salads and stuff like that. Once again, I try not to bulk the meals up because you could put a lot of lettuce and cabbage into a meal and you're not really adding very much calories. But what happens is it's so much volume, even though it makes you feel full, it keeps your stomach stretched. The best thing that can happen to you while you're dieting is your stomach shrinks so that you're not as hungry, because most people cheat on a diet because they're hungry. If you're hungry all the time because you're putting these big volumes of food into your stomach and your stomach is stretched out, you're gonna be hungrier between meals. So for me, to get my athletes to get those stomachs shrunk down, I want the volume of the meals to be small, okay? And then what happens is they don't want to eat the meal. Then when I actually give them a cheat meal on the weekends, they can't even eat that much because they feel full right away. Why? Because the stomach shrunk up.
Physique.85, does taking Fibrilize affect absorption of vitamins, orals? Is it okay to take at the same time or at separate times?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and I don't really know the right answer to give people. What I do is I try not to take the Fibrilize with any fatty acid supplements because it really binds oil. It binds, fats, bile salts, stuff like that in the body. It doesn't really have an effect on water-soluble vitamins. Having said that, in a multivitamin, some vitamins are water-soluble, some are fat-soluble. So what I try to do is separate the fiber from my vitamin intake. Although sometimes when I'm on the road and I don't have time to get back to my hotel, I pop my vitamins and I take a fiber shake, I go to sleep. But on a routine basis, I try to do my fiber shake in the middle of the day sometime and then before bed, not around meal times when I'm taking my vitamins.
Let's go to Kennedy Ledgerwood for prep cardio. Morning fasted or the end of the night followed with no food?
I would never go to sleep after doing cardio and not eating anything. Can't be good for you. I prefer it either first thing in the morning on an empty stomach or after you weight train, which creates an empty stomach type phenomenon. If you can't get in at those times, just do it during the day when you have time. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't wait till the night, do it at night, and then try to go to sleep after that. You're not going to have a good night's sleep, I promise you.
Muscle by Monis. Can you realistically tell us if you think Brandon Curry will be top 5 Olympia this year? And if not, what you think he needs to improve to be there?
I don't think he's going to be top 5. I think he'll be top 10 for sure if he brings that same look that he brought to New Zealand. But you never know. You never know because he has still months to improve. We don't know who else is going to be there in shape. Obviously Brandon has a blessed structure. I just think he needs more size on him still. I know it sounds weird because he just added a lot of size. I think he can probably pack another 5 to 7 pounds on his physique to really maximize those legs and his back to really impress. Right now he's nailed his conditioning and he put a little bit of muscle on going out to Kuwait, but he still needs to put more muscle on his body.
Shaquille Rahman, in your opinion and in order 1, 2, 3, who is the hardest trainer? Tom Platz, Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman?
I don't know. That's a pretty tough group there. I've seen Yates train. He's pretty intense. Ronnie is. I'll tell you why Ronnie's probably the most impressive because Ronnie. There's 2 basic ways to train. The high intensity way, which is what Dorian Yates did: less sets, less volume. More intensity, heavy, max out sets, right? And then there's the higher volume way where you're doing a lot more sets, maybe not as heavy a weight, but you're doing a lot of volume. Ronnie has combined the 2. Somehow, in his superhumanness, he's able to do crazy heavy weights with insane intensity for long duration and multiple sets. Don't know how he does it, but he can do it. He'll train each body part twice a week for hours and recover. No one else can do that. The whole philosophy behind high intensity training, Dorian Yates style and Mike Mentzer style, was you can't recover from those crazy long high intensity, high set workouts. But if you do maximum intensity and lift heavy weights, that stimulus is enough to grow muscle. Ronnie threw that whole philosophy and all the science of that out the window. Anyone else who tried to do what Ronnie would do would probably fail miserably. But that's probably why he's the greatest, bodybuilder of all time.
He also wants to know when Rashid Oldacre is going to make his pro debut.
We tentatively have him scheduled for, and I think it's going to go through because he's looking good now, for Tampa Pro. That'll be his pro debut. He had some injuries, earlier in the year, and that really held him back a lot from training the way he needed to. Right now he's on track. We're dieting him down for Tampa. I think he's going to be I think he'll be ready for that. And if he is, I will say let's do it. If not, we won't do it. We'll postpone it. But I think Tampa will be the show we see him at.
Jackass 75, Dave, the best diuretic to take the day before a contest, or alternatively, the best way to shred all water weight and when to start. If I have a contest in 2 Saturdays from now, what is the best protocol to follow?
Well, as you guys know, I don't do homework assignments. That's a homework assignment. That's me writing an essay. We don't have enough time here to go over that. I do last week contest prep with a lot of people. So they hire me for $100. I do the last week and I baby step them right through it every single day, updates, and we change things and we basically peak the person perfectly for the show. It's just a little too hard to talk about it. There's too much too complex, and every person's a little different. I like Diazide. I've mentioned it before. I like Diazide because it's the only balanced diuretic, which means that you only lose sodium on it. You don't lose, it's what we call potassium sparing. And it's very predictable. And the reason it's very predictable is because I give certain amounts of it, and if the person cramps, you give them salt because you know they're sodium depleted. They will never be potassium depleted. If you use a stronger diuretic like Demodex or Lasix, it works to get rid of water. The problem is if you get rid of too much and too much electrolyte and you start cramping, you don't know if you're sodium depleted or potassium depleted. So you really don't know what to add into the equation to fix the problem. Diazide, it's only sodium depletion. You don't lose potassium because you got 2 diuretics that balance each other out. Now the other diuretic that a lot of people try to use is aldactone, which is also potassium sparing. The problem with aldactone is that it inhibits the hormone aldosterone. And if you take too much of it or you deplete too much sodium, okay, which is what aldosterone's job is to reabsorb sodium. So if you block that hormone, your body can't reabsorb sodium. If you deplete too much sodium at that point and you start cramping, eating salt won't fix the problem because aldosterone is being blocked and inhibited from doing its job. So not the best, and also if you take aldactone for too long a period of time, it acts as an anti-androgen. So after evaluating all the diuretics at our disposal that we can use, the one that works the best to me is Diazide. There's another name for it that we see out there. I think in Mexico it's called Maxide. And then there's another diuretic that's very similar to it, a little slightly different compounds, but they do the same thing, and that's called Modiuretic, which you find in Europe. So those 3 drugs are probably what you want to stick with.
We'll take 2 more. We'll see if we can breeze through these. We have an interview coming. We're not going to reveal the identity, but you'll see it on our YouTube channel and RxMuscle.com. Real quick, from Lee Axon, can you kindly explain the main difference between ketogenic diet and Atkins? And can you also tell me if I'm right, as a bodybuilder weighing 225 pounds, that I need extra protein and fat to allow the body to skim some off as a fuel source while the rest is used in the normal way, as in rebuilding the muscles during rest?
Atkins basically said don't eat carbohydrates. If you don't eat carbohydrates in your diet, you can eat whatever else you want. Because carbohydrates cause insulin release. Insulin's a fat storage hormone. Get rid of insulin and you're going to lose weight. And most people did. It was an unstructured, unregimented diet that just had one rule. And the one rule allowed it to succeed. So people lost weight on it. The problem is they created even more dysfunctional eating because they were eating bacon and ham and whole eggs and cream and all kinds of tons of red meat, fatty pieces. That's not a bodybuilding diet. If you want to have a physique that you can die for, that looks great, you need to eat high protein, lean sources of protein, and you need to eat good fats, not just saturated fats, but good essential fats, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fats in the right ratios. And that's what my diet does. My diet structures the eating to be good sources, high protein, okay, moderate fat, very, very low carbs. Okay, most Atkins diets, okay, are like the conventional ketogenic diets you see in the medical world, which is probably double the fat than carbs. Excuse me, double the fat than protein. So it's like 2 times the amount of fat for every gram of carbs. So it's 2 grams of fat per 1 gram of protein. Sorry, I keep screwing it up. So we don't want that. We don't need more fat. We need more protein because protein builds and repair muscle. Okay, we do need some fat for fuel and some fat for muscle repair, but we don't need double the amount of what we need protein-wise. And that's where the 2 diets vary. The question that he asked was, does he need to eat more protein and fat, okay, to spare the protein and fat essentially for being used for muscle repair? And the answer is that no, not necessarily. You got to figure out how much you need. It's usually about 1 gram to 1.5 grams of protein per pound that you weigh, and about 0.5 gram to 0.75 grams of fat per pound that you weigh, divided over the course of 6 meals during the day. That seems to be ideal for people. People find that when I use that formula, they have the right amount of food, they have enough protein and fat to repair and build muscle, and they have enough protein and fat in there also to act as a fuel source.
Well, to squeeze this last one in as well, Jack in Stack 1, are there any benefits of taking Anadrol, 50 to 100 mgs all at once for a pre-workout only? Some gurus, as he puts it, claim by taking Anadrol all once daily for a pre-workout, it will greatly assist with the muscle pump during training, help with putting on overall quality muscle tissue, and negate the potential of side effects you would normally get taking it multiple times in a day. Your thoughts?
Most people take Anadrol once a day because it's almost a 24-hour pill. It lasts probably 18 hours in the body or so. You could take it in the morning. It's still going to be working when you get to the gym. It's not a pre-workout where steroids. I just answered a question someone emailed me. Steroids are not fast-acting compounds, even the orals. They got to get into your system. They got to get absorbed. They got to get into the bloodstream, and then they got to start attaching themselves to to the muscle cells to do their thing. That doesn't happen in 20 minutes. So you can get up and take your Anadrol in the morning if that's really what you want to use. I wouldn't recommend taking Anadrol in the off season because it kills your appetite. It's very toxic to the liver, and it just blunts appetite. Pre-contest, some guys can get away with using it because you're so hungry from dieting that it almost it's a welcome mat to have a little bit of appetite suppression. But it is a strong drug. I never was able to take it more than 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I always felt like crap on it, and I felt my eyes were swelled shut. I had like always got this weird sticking pain in my liver area. I didn't want to eat. To me, that's not a good substance to be putting into your body if you feel like crap on it. Okay, and so I just at some point just said that's enough. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to try anymore. I don't need it. There's so many other compounds out there that you can use there's no reason to use Anadrol if it doesn't agree with you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Again, visit speciesnutrition.com. For Dave Palumbo and Johnny Styles, I'm Steve Faruqi. We'll see you next time.